This is Roberta Foster, and welcome to today's edition of the Author's Corner, brought to you by KNEO 91.7 FM The Word. And today I welcome Erin Nelson and Colleen Montague to Author's Corner. They co-wrote the book When Grief Comes Home, a gentle guide for living through loss while supporting your child. It's published by Baker Books, a division of Baker Publishing Group, and they'll tell you more about how to find the book at the end of the program. And a real quick look at their biography. Erin is the founder and executive director of Jessica's House, a grief support center for children and families. She's an advanced certified trauma practitioner through the National Institute of Trauma and Loss in Children, and has been supporting grieving families for more than 20 years. And then Colleen is a licensed marriage and family therapist and the program director for Jessica's House, supporting parents and their children after a death in the family. Ladies, welcome to Author's Corner.
Thanks for having us, Roberta.
Well, we'll start with a question with Erin. According to your own testimony, you're not a stranger to loss. So why don't you share with our listeners your own personal experience and how that shaped your approach to writing this book?
Oh, thank you, Roberta. I'm no stranger to loss, and I was introduced to loss when my children were very young. They were only 5 and 3 when my husband, Tyler, died in a very sudden way. He was up fishing with his friends up in Alaska, and he and his 2 friends were involved in a mid-air collision. And so all 3 of them died, along with the pilot and the pilot from the other aircraft. And so I received that middle-of-the-night phone call that you just kind of always fear but never think that grief will come home for you. And so that was my introduction, really, to loss, and my introduction to watching a child really process the loss of a parent. And then shortly after my husband Tyler died, my mom, who had lived with bipolar for many years, died from suicide. And so my 15-year-old sister came to live with us, and I learned about teens and what they needed when they were grieving. And so it was just, I think, a deep invitation to grieve and to have an understanding of what others may need when they grieve. And so it really set me in a trajectory of helping other people through loss.
Well, why don't you tell us, Erin, I guess it was you that's the founder of the Jessica's House. Just give us a little insight into how that started.
Yeah, Jessica's House, we launched in the year 2012, and we are modeled after the very first grief center in the United States called the Dougie Center in Portland, Oregon, and they've been open for over 30 years, and we were very inspired by their model, and they've helped to inspire other grief centers, about 400 around the United States. And so, yes, I learned about the model, and I was noticing in my community that there was a lack of grief support. And I was doing some work in my church through a crisis ministry, and I think what we learned was the need was great, and about 1 in 12 children will experience the death of a parent or sibling by the age of 18, and that more than doubles by the age of 25. And so we knew the need was great, and so at Jessica's House, we're serving about 700 individuals a month, and it's just needed. So we want to counter the risk factors that happen when children, teens experience the death of a parent or sibling, and if they have unsupported grief, the risk factors are there for them with emotional and mental, just the difficulties that you can encounter when you don't have support.
So, Colleen, why don't you tell us about maybe some of the biggest challenges that you see grieving families facing, especially in those first days or months of their loss?
Yeah, there's so much. It's so hard for the parents because they're holding this loss, and they're also raising children who are grieving too. And everybody grieves so differently, and so it can be hard for the families and the parents and the kids, just to be able to respect where each person is. Some all the kids in the family may grieve differently as well. Some may be a little bit more talkative about it or expressive. Others may be a little bit more withdrawn. I think other challenges that we've heard from families is just the amount of support that they can receive. I think it means everything when a family is surrounded by support. But eventually, that can kind of lessen over time, leaving the family feeling alone. And also with the type of loss that they're living with, sometimes with stigmatized types of loss, such as homicide, suicide, or accidental overdose, people in their circles may not really know what to say, or, they may kind of hold their own judgments about it. And so we've learned from families that support can kind of lean away from them during those. And so that's why we do what we do, to offer this peer support, this space where they can be around others who get what they're going through. There's so much power in that. And, we know not everybody has a Jessica's House in their backyard, but there are grief centers all over the country and online support groups too. And so if your listeners are interested, they could always visit NACG.org. That's the National Alliance for Children Who Are Grieving. And there's a search feature within their website to help you find a resource closer to you.
Well, thank you so much for that information for those that would be looking for some place to get assistance. And as you said, it's not in our backyard. Well, today I'm talking with Erin Nelson and Colleen Montague about the book, When Grief Comes Home, A Gentle Guide for Living Through Loss While Supporting Your Child. It's published by Baker Books, a division of Baker Publishing Group. And you are listening to Author's Corner. If you miss any part of today's interview or would just like to hear it again, you can find it on your favorite podcast provider or through kneo.org. Okay, so you've said this already, but children and adults grieve differently. So what are some of the ways that children express and process griefs that can help parents to understand how to help them?
Oh, yes. And so when we see kids, something that we notice is that they really, if you think about kind of like spiraling in and out of a grief process, they kind of do that a little faster than adults. And so what we notice with kids is they might want to check in with their parent and ask questions about the death or talk about their feelings, but then they're ready to go play outside. And so they are kind of just, we call it like dosing yourself in some ways, where they can't accept the loss all at one time, but they just take it in little doses. And so when you see a child, we know that with children, behavior is our best information. And so being able to really notice kind of how they're acting and what might be underneath to help them to express what is really going on inside of them, and whatever that is that they need to get out of their body. We like to think about grief as energy in your body, and as we grieve by expression, and we heal by expression. And so being able to express whatever that is, sometimes they're feeling confused. They might be feeling really angry or maybe jealous that someone else at their school has a dad, but they don't. And so there are very complex emotions. Something at Jessica's House that we always want to bring some light to with children is that they can also be really excited. It's their birthday, and also really, really sad that this death happened. And so knowing that you can hold complex emotions at the same time sometimes can bring relief to a child that might feel a little bit guilty, that they also still feel happy. And so you can be surprised by that sometimes when you're grieving.
Yeah. Well, Colleen, I found this interesting that you encourage establishment of routines and stability after a loss. So why is that important, and what are some ways that parents can create this sense of security for their child?
After the death of a parent or a sibling, there's just such a loss of control for the whole family, really. There's such a loss of security, too, because now their little safety bubble has been burst. They know now that people can die. And so keeping the routine, I know that can sound impossible at the time, but anything you can do, whether it's, as mom, if you're the one that tucks them in for bed, trying to keep that as best you can, having, another family member that is maybe there for them to tuck them in or read them a story, trying to keep morning routines if they're, once they're returning to school, similar. And any time that you're going to have a change in schedule, maybe somebody else is going to pick them up from school, communicating that to your child if you can. And even if that has to be a phone call to the school for them to relay the message, just so that they don't have any more surprises.
Sure.
Just any time that you can bring that sense of security to them. And even on that, too, just giving them some control when you can. Can they pick the dinner that night? Can they pick, if they want to wear a dress or pants to school? Anytime that we can give a child a little bit of control, it really helps give them a sense of empowerment during such a hard time.
Interesting. Another thing that caught my attention is talking about the lost member of the family. And I know that it will be painful, but is it also very healthy to do so?
So when we talk about, talking about the person who died, it's, kids really, what we've seen at Jessica's house is they really want to talk about that person. Even in my family, I noticed that, they want to talk about that. They want to just say, we would just even bring that person into that moment. Like maybe you're watching a sunset and maybe your mom loves sunsets and you could say like, what do you think mom would have thought about this?
Yeah.
And just being able to, they might have questions. So keeping those stories alive and having other people share stories and just continuing to bring it up. Even if maybe your child's not bringing it up, but maybe you can bring it up. And just to share those memories. And we just want them to continue to feel connected to that person and whatever we can do to bring that connection. And sometimes we do that through linking objects. Maybe they want to wear Dad's T-shirt to bed or, eat his favorite cookie or whatever it might be. Just continue to put whatever that favorite snack is into the grocery cart. And so just continuing to just remember them in all the little ways and the big ways with anniversaries and just different kinds of milestones that they might be missing from.
How about, is it going too far to do things like a birthday cake on the missing member of the family on their birthday?
Oh, we were just talking, Colleen and I, about how kids have the best ideas and putting those kinds of ideas about just to say to them as you're coming upon an anniversary or a birthday or a holiday to say, like, what kinds of ideas do you have? And, I remember even after my husband died, my kids, he loved Lucky Charms. He loved Lucky Charms. And so I remember as his heaven day came around and we were facing that one year, and I said, what do you want to do? And they said, let's start our day with Lucky Charms, just like Dad would like to do on those special occasions. And so being able to ask them, what about a birthday cake? How many candles would you want to put on it? And to talk about, some people like to remember the year that they died, how many years it's been, or maybe it is the age they would have been. So letting them being in all of those decisions and just sing that birthday song. Sometimes people want to do a little butterfly or balloon release or something like that. Maybe write a letter about, we have a family who talked about how every year they would write a letter, just kind of talking about like all the parts of life that person missed. And so they did that every year. So there are so many good ideas that kids come up with, and to talk about it as a family is really important.
Well, I can tell that there's so much more to be included in your book, When Grief Comes Home. It's co-written by Erin Nelson and Colleen Montague, published by Baker Books. Ladies, how can they find out more about this book and other ministry resources?
We have this book available anywhere books are sold, and so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and even through Baker. You can also listen to a podcast that we launched last fall. It's also called When Grief Comes Home. That is just an extension of the book and the ministry of Jessica's House, and that is also available on all podcast platforms. For any other resources that you may need or your listeners need, we have a number of different resources, brochures, and little art activity packets on our website, which is jessicashouse.org. And if you want to connect with Erin or I, you're always welcome to email us at info@jessicashouse.org.
Fantastic. A reminder, the book is When Grief Comes Home, A Gentle Guide for Living Through Loss While Supporting Your Child, written by Erin Nelson and Colleen Montague. We certainly thank Baker Books for giving us a copy of the book to talk about. And Erin, Colleen, both of you have been so educational and inspirational in our conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Roberta. It was wonderful to be with you.
Thank you so much.
And to our listeners, we sure appreciate you tuning in. This is Roberta Foster on the Author's Corner. Join me again next time.